To Ideagen TV. Today we have with us Gretchen O'Hara, Vice President of U.S. AI and Sustainability Strategy at Microsoft. Gretchen, welcome.
Thank you so much. So excited to be here.
Always great to see you, Gretchen. And also with us today, BJ Moore, Executive Vice President and Chief Information Officer at Providence. Welcome to you both.
Thanks, George. Appreciate it.
You know, it's an exciting time for a lot of reasons. Goal number 17, which we're talking about today, of the United Nations Global Goals, is probably the most important goal of the 17. And to remind our global audience, these 17 global goals were agreed to unanimously by all 193 member states of the United Nations. And if you think about that, especially in today's global situation that we're in with a pandemic, et cetera, all 193 member states coming together to agree to these critical goals, including the United States of America, is poignant because it says something about bringing people together. And I could not think of two better examples than Microsoft and Providence and Gretchen O'Hara and BJ Moore talking about goal number 17, partnerships for the goals. And so I'd like to start with you, Gretchen. Let's start with, most recently, you led Microsoft's One Commercial Partner go-to-market strategy for the United States. And now you have a new role, a leadership position within Microsoft US and AI and sustainability. Gretchen, could you tell our global audience about your new role and your focus within Microsoft today?
Oh, absolutely. So when I run One Commercial Partner for go-to-market, it was all about building partnerships and making them successful. In essence, really making sure that every partner had the capability and the opportunity to really build business with Microsoft. So now I feel so fortunate because as we've made announcements around sustainability and we continue to innovate in emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, the dedication around an organization such as this really shows that we're putting our money where our mouth is and saying we need to really be able to go big and help our partners, quite frankly, our customers, our citizens, the ecosystem, if you will, to really help get after actually our UN SDG 17 goals. And so the way that I think about the organization I'm running here at Microsoft today is really about taking a holistic approach and an inclusive way to the market, really raising the tide for everyone, including our customers, our partners, government, the communities where we live and operate today. And we do this with a focus around technology. We really believe that we can, through innovation and through technology, be able to make sure that we're democratizing access for everyone and that we are being able to really help really close the digital divide and improve and increase on how we address sustainability as a whole, as a nation, and certainly around the globe.
You know, that's just phenomenal to hear about that trajectory and all of the insights that you are leading up now at Microsoft. And so
congratulations, Gretchen.
Thank you.
And a heartfelt note of congratulations, of course, to you, Gretchen, and also BJ. BJ, you spent 26 years at Microsoft before joining Providence about 2 years ago now to lead its digital transformation. Could you tell us more about your role and how it has evolved over these past 2 years?
Sure. So like Gretchen, I recently got an expanded role. So I'm still the Chief Information Officer. My primary role there is supporting our 120,000 caregivers that we have here at Providence, our patients that we've got across the Western United States here. And, really, how do we do that digital transformation of healthcare through technology? And so that's the original role I was hired for. I still have that role. In addition, just recently, I took over real estate and operations. And so an opportunity to really combine kind of the technical assets that we have as a CIO with what we're doing on the real estate front. And, how do we evolve the way we deliver care and those patient experiences? So excited to have the expanded role and excited to be here today, George. Thank you.
Well,
and congratulations, BJ, for you as well. That's very exciting.
That is a note of congratulations. So both of you have these incredible new roles, and it's not by accident. I firmly believe that those that take on new roles, expanded roles, have demonstrated that leadership, that ability to peer around corners. And so really looking at purpose-driven missions and visions for global impact, right? And so, Gretchen, it's no secret that Microsoft has evolved into a company that leads, is out front, leading with culture and purpose-driven mission to empower every single person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. Could you share with our global audience this evolution and how you see this enabling Microsoft to make an even bigger impact around the planet?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the first thing is, culture and building culture can be hard. And it starts with our people, starts with the organization. We expand that out to a partner's ecosystem and the communities. But one of the biggest lessons that we learned actually here at Microsoft is that you can't change a company culture alone. You have to have, as what you said, George, is this purpose-driven mission. And when you have this purpose-driven mission, you can then continue to evolve strategy over time, but that you keep that culture and that purpose constant. And so we've really been able to rally around that empowerment message that we talked about. It helps us make our people better. It helps us make our products better. It helps us attract incredible talent. And it builds trust on how we're actually going out to really help everyone here on the planet. And so there's a great example, nothing has hit us harder than the global pandemic. And so with COVID-19, we realized that it is really important that we put our culture to work and engage with our customers differently. And I think you're going to see more and more of this as we continue to evolve, which is around empathy. And empathy is something that we believe is very important. That's allowed us to really meet the needs of customers. It's allowed us to really get help and respond and recover, quite frankly, from the pandemic in an empathetic manner. And we realize that every challenge that every customer, every person, every individual faces can be different. But when we bring empathy into that culture, we have the opportunity to engage in a whole different level to really make big sustainable changes. And certainly as we think about that from our sustainability efforts. And so one of the great examples of then just putting that into reality is when we announced our Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare. This could not come at a better time, which really helps with our innovation, our agility, the strategic partnerships such as Providence, for example. We're able to scale to our customers and really consider life-saving capabilities that are really prominent right now in the current environment. And so I would just say that as we continue to evolve as a company, culture will be there, but empathy is how we'll continue to lead with our engagements.
And Gretchen, I'd just like to say I've seen a big difference. I mean, obviously, they're at Microsoft for 26 years. I've really seen a difference in that engagement during COVID. The partnership was strong, but it only got stronger through the crisis. So thank you.
Thank you.
That it really is incredible. And the way you described it, Gretchen, I mean, culture and empathy and leading with those is such an important component to any organization's mission. And so it's obviously working. It's working because it's very real, right? And that's what's beautiful about it. And so, BJ, Providence is also a leader in the healthcare industry, obviously. And it has a purpose-driven vision to actually transform health for a better world. Can you share some of this vision with our global audience and how this is being scaled for global impact?
Yeah, so excited to be here at Providence, 165 plus year old organization. This is actually our second pandemic we've been through. We went through our old records and history and saw how we handled the original Spanish flu pandemic. It was interesting to see a lot of the similarities there. Yeah, as you've mentioned, our vision and mission is there around health for a better world. And we see technology as being a real key enabler of that. And that's really why I've joined, for that digital transformation of healthcare and how we can continue to, know me, care for me, and ease my way for our patients. as part of my responsibilities, we've got 3 strategic pillars that we're going after this that really kind of lead us in everything we do, and that simplify, modernize, and innovate. Simplify, we almost think it is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You need to take care of the basics first to simplify. We're modernizing in partnership with Microsoft, and that'll really lay the foundation for innovation. We kicked that off about a year ago, and we've already seen that pay off, and it really paid off for us during COVID. A couple of good examples. Early on in the pandemic, people were worried about the health systems being overrun, not having enough hospital beds. And to build new hospital beds or hospitals can take months or years or even decades. And so we didn't have the luxury to do that. And that's where technology really, really helped us. And so telehealth, the ability to see patients remotely, it really paid off for us. We grew that business from, just a handful of visits a day to over 10,000 a week during the pandemic. And that was all done through technology. And then a lot of our COVID patients, we were able to send them home and remotely monitor them. And again, that was a great enabler for us to increase our capacity, and frankly, fantastic for our patients. Most patients would prefer to be at home and be able to remotely monitor them. And if there was action needed, we could bring them back in the hospital or intervene remotely. So it's been great to see those technology investments pay off. It's great to see in real time how technology can transform healthcare. And so, coming up, there's, things that we're going to keep doing. I think machine learning and big data and artificial intelligence are going to continue to help us transform, putting that patient in the center, more remote care kind of scenarios, making it more convenient, making healthcare more accessible. And so, yeah, really excited about the vision and mission here, and excited to see how technology is really transforming this industry.
Well, BJ, I think that what you just described is so profound, and it's all about that being able to see around the corners. Those organizations that succeed can see around corners because they have a commitment to these partnerships. And you alluded to that with Microsoft, and because of that relationship, when times were, let's say, better pre-pandemic, you were able to pivot quickly and understand the core capacities that you could expand upon or look to change the game. And so as we share these insights and you tell us more about what you're seeing, the approach at Providence's mission for health for a better world, in addition to leading now this real estate strategy and operations, can you share more about your new remit and its connection to sustainability?
Yeah. So first, George, I want to play off a comment that you made, right? In times of crisis isn't when you try to build these coalitions and partnerships and try to do that, right? So we kicked off the strategic partnership with Microsoft July of last year. We were well underway. And because of that investment, getting all of our caregivers on Office 365 and Teams and allowing our workforce to work remotely, that proactive partnership really paid off. As far as my expanded role, really excited to, on the surface, it doesn't make sense. Why would you take a CIO that's very technologically focused and combine it with real estate and facilities? And we did it for 2 big reasons. One, care delivery of the future is more than just a hospital. It's those remote scenarios I talked about. It could be telehealth, it's smaller clinical settings or environments. And those new experiences are not going to be just real estate. It's going to be real estate and technology combined. So there are some real synergies there. And then, we're not going to go back to the pre-COVID days where everybody goes into a cube or an office and go back to the way we're doing things. And so this workplace of the future, is really going to transform not only our healthcare caregivers here, but all the industries. And so having real estate and IS together and figuring out what is that workplace of the future look like, a lot of synergies. The other big one is, sustainability. I took this role over 4 weeks ago, and I was amazed by some of the stats. I'll just share a couple of them with you, George, about the healthcare industry. So here in the US, the healthcare industry represents about 10% of the greenhouse emissions for the entire country. That's the second largest greenhouse emitter of all of the industries. And so as a health system, it's the right thing to do, the responsible thing to do to focus on sustainability. Put it another way, if we were a country, if the US healthcare system was a country, we would be ranked anywhere between 9th and 13th as far as greenhouse emissions. So you can see there's, a real opportunity for us to give back to our communities. And that's why our CEO, Rod Hochman, and Providence have committed for us to be carbon negative by 2030. So very aggressive goal, going from a large greenhouse emitter to being carbon negative in just 10 short years. And we're going to do that a number of ways. Every new building we build is going to align to the Silver LEED standard. And so everything will be newly efficient. We're getting, out of these big energy consumers. Simple example is I have 6 large data centers. We don't need to be in the data center business. And so I'm actively closing those data centers down, moving them to Microsoft Azure. Microsoft is also, very focused on being, reducing their carbon emissions. So that helps. Doing more of these remote work options, right? Having fewer people coming to work, having people be able to work remotely. Things like Teams have been a real enabler for that. And then in the future, retrofitting our buildings, making these buildings smarter, things like Internet of Things, turning lights on and off, managing the energy use better, more efficient systems and capabilities within our ministries. And so a lot of things we can be doing, combination of both, standard real estate as well as technology to become more sustainable. So yeah, next time, well, it's going to be a while, but in 10 years, we can't be the second largest industry as far as greenhouse emissions, and super proud to be part of that sustainability effort with Providence.
Well, and it goes back to, what we were talking about earlier, which is understanding the core capabilities and competencies of your partners. And so those organizations that are able to not only survive, but in some ways thrive today, had that baked into their ethos, like Microsoft and Providence, that partnerships are critical. And today we're talking about partnerships because you both are emblematic of what partnerships should look like. It's you believe it, you're living it, you're doing it, you're looking for solutions. And that's what's beautiful about this. And you talked about carbon negative by 2030, and it rings a bell for me because Gretchen, you all made an announcement back in January. We did.
We made an announcement. We did.
So you made this announcement by Microsoft in January that Microsoft would become carbon negative by 2030. How is Microsoft making this real for partners, customers, global communities, et cetera? And can you share what you feel are the driving factors for the increased focus we are seeing around the world and across the planet on sustainability?
Yeah, absolutely. First, I want to say, BJ, again, like we've said congratulations, but for the audience listening, what this is signaling to the market is so critical, which is the importance of technology and leadership in technology connecting with big investment areas such as real estate to build out that sustainability vision and mission. And so it's exciting, again, to see Providence sort of leadership out on front and you leading the way there for sure. And we're aligned. We can't do these things without partnerships. It was great to see the same commitment on the carbon 2030, carbon negative 2030. We're moving to get more aligned actually with many of our partners to go into this together. And in fact, by 2050, Microsoft now will announce that we will remove all of the environment of all the carbon that the company has emitted since we were founded in 1975. So we want to get to a place and lead the way on being carbon negative, and then we want to go further. And to push that further, we know we need to have policy. And we know that we need to have technology, and we know we need leadership, as you're just hearing here today with BJ, to lead us through that. And we're excited about that. So we have a plan, and we know we need to invest in that plan. And so we've put $1 billion into a fund to support partnerships such as Providence and others to come together to invest in that pledge. and to invest not only just in our carbon emissions and specifically getting to carbon negative, but also how we think about water, how we think about waste, how we think about the biodiversity and the ecosystem, and they all become quite interconnected as we think through those things today. And so we want to invest in partnerships. We want to help our customers, making sure that we bring these goals together and really address it, not only for the US, but this is actually a global issue that we need to continue to move after. And so we're on this journey, and we want to bring our partners on this journey, and we want to be able to showcase that thought leadership and give them the tools to be able to go faster and to be able to go further towards their own sustainability goals and their initiatives, and we all are aligned there. And so the way that I think about sustainability, and what we're doing between our own learning of how we've done it and being able to share that into the marketplace, the policy work that we're doing to go drive real change, and then the investment to be able to use technology and the help of others, there's really three things that we see in the engagement there. The first is just that when we come together, we can create fundamentally new business models, and that is new opportunity and economic growth in the economy. And we think we are starting to already see from market demand for clean energy solutions, sustainability solutions. We see incredible companies that are actually fostering innovation, fostering startups, incubators, and other great technology companies to be able to go help and support that. And from there, it is an opportunity for sure that it's not just good for our planet, but it's good for business. And so again, the move with Providence, we're seeing many of our customers make those moves because it is really good for the business overall. The second, and BJ mentioned this a little bit as well, with sort of the smart buildings and smart real estate is really about saving costs. And again, we believe that through our work on sustainability, through our help with the partnerships that we're building that are so critical for us to address this together, we believe that there can be reduce of operating costs. We can reduce headcount, leasing costs. These are all real estate areas that I know BJ is working on right now, and ultimately reducing the energy and consumption in this area. And we think that those can go right to the bottom line. As BJ said, sort of, the workforce of the future and the way we're going to modern work, is going to look different. And I think that companies can continue to save money while doing the really good thing. The last, though, I would just say is around brand equity. And if you haven't seen this happening, this is becoming one of the biggest areas for companies that are looking at brand reputation. So employees want to come to a company that believes in sustainability, that has a real active commitment and a pledge to that particular area. Investors want to invest in areas that have a purpose-driven mission and a sustainability statement for the future. And so then partnerships want to come together and bet on the commonality of areas that we want to jointly invest in. And again, here we are, Microsoft and Providence on that. So it is an incredible brand reputation that equates into real goodness, not only for our planet, but for the ecosystem and for the economic growth, of our country and certainly of the world. So I think about this now, coming this back to sustainability. We're all making big pledges. You talk about, we're here on partnerships. What does that mean? We work with countries and agencies, organizations around the world, and we are really connected and steadfast with United Nations to really achieve the 2030 SDG goals that you, George, outlined so perfectly at the start of this show. And we believe that, when we come together, and we need to come together through these public and private partnerships. We need to come together through these strategic partnerships that we can make real change, and we can address the SDGs with Microsoft and others like us to be able to really change the way that we do business and address fundamentally the very biggest challenges that we see ahead of us on this agenda. And so we are committed at Microsoft for sure to take action. We're committed to help our partners in the ecosystem and our customers lift them up and also enable them to take action. And I think collectively, when we do this, we grow the economy, and we certainly can build out social inclusion and ultimately drive progress at a global basis.
Gretchen, you're right. It's just awe-inspiring to hear everything that's happening at Microsoft. I mean, when you think about empathy, when you think about all these conversations we've been having through this 17 days, and now on this Global Partnerships Summit Day at the NASDAQ, the notion of empathy and understanding, there's a lot of folks that are referring to rebuilding, for example. Let's rebuild. Let's reimagine. You cannot begin to reimagine if you haven't seen it in the first place. And so that's the key part of all of these discussions, and really tying in back to the global goals is understanding what it's like to walk in someone's shoes, right? And that's the definition of empathy. It's not sympathy. It's understanding what it's like to be them, and then you can maybe make a more informed decision on the path you will take. But you can't begin to do that unless you actually step into their shoes. And that's what I love about what's happening at Microsoft. And that's what we love about what's happening at Providence, is you all are not just talking, you're walking and making it happen. And so thank you for that. BJ, Providence is both a customer and a partner of Microsoft, as we've discussed. Could you explain what this means? And what are the advantages of being both? And how has it helped Providence to ultimately perhaps even accelerate the digital transformation in the organization?
Sure. I'll take it in two parts, George. So first, as a customer, this partnership has really paid off, adopting the Microsoft tool set, moving to Office 365. As I mentioned earlier, we started that journey a year ago, and that paid off for us, as we, during the pandemic, had to send our caregivers home, our non-clinical caregivers home. Having things like Teams to allow, remote work and collaboration was just invaluable. So, from a customer side, that was critical. I want to play off, we kind of mentioned a little bit, but I really want to make it more clear, on the partnership side of things. Traditionally, what people do, is take a data center. As a CIO, I would have figured out, hey, how do I get my own data centers to be carbon neutral or carbon negative? And that would have been a huge effort that would be distracting. And so that's a great example of both being a customer and a partner, where in this case, I just said, you know what, I don't need to be in the data center business. Microsoft has got this figured out. I can give it to them. And so that's me as a customer consuming that service, but as a partner, moving these health applications there, and how do we, ensure that other health systems can make a similar move. On the partner side of things, we really came together. Obviously we're a big customer of Microsoft, but on the partnership side of things, that's where things are really going to pay off. Microsoft has a strong research arm doing a lot of things with machine learning and artificial intelligence. Providence is one of the largest health systems in the US, frankly, the world. The number of customers, patients that we serve put us in a great spot from a partnership perspective, because we have these world-class researchers as well. And so bringing our research, our clinicians, our patients, opting into some of these trials and partnering with Microsoft is a really unique situation. So a simple example we've been experimenting with Microsoft is around natural language processing. When you've got a health record, you as a patient go to your doctor, a lot of your information is captured in a health record, but a doctor also takes a lot of notes. And we're finding that having the natural language processing, the artificial intelligence reading through those notes, we're actually able to get insights, pre-diagnosis of cancer or better cancer outcomes. So an example where, we bring our cancer insight, our patients that have opted into doing research like this, and bring it with Microsoft's technology to explore how do we bring technology and these health insights together. And so, it's been great to be a customer. But it's even been better to be a partner. And as we get further in this partnership, really excited to share some of the breakthroughs that Microsoft and Providence, I think, will come up with for healthcare.
Well, what's so exciting about this conversation is the ability to look at this partnership from a three-dimensional standpoint, to hear from Providence. And now, Gretchen, I'd like to ask you, based on what BJ just shared, these incredible insights from a partner standpoint and from an impact standpoint that he sees Microsoft bringing to the table. Can you take us into the view, that other view, this incredibly unique insight that you have of the view from Microsoft lens on how Microsoft views the power of the partnership with Providence?
Yeah, I think BJ summed it up really well, in the sense that there are natural things that Microsoft can bring to the table, and we certainly want to help on the innovation side. But there are scientists and research and other and doctors and expertise that, quite frankly, Providence brings to the table that makes actually all the work in machine learning and deep learning and some of the other areas that we're working on so much better. And this just kind of goes back to the need of having those strategic partnerships, that it's not just putting technology into a data center or moving that onto a particular platform. It's going much deeper to identify, hey, not just a customer, but what does a true partnership look like? And how do we light up the mission that is around Providence through technology that Microsoft can do? And together then we can make a huge difference in the marketplace. And so when I think about Health for a Better World, the work that Providence is leading on that, that is really the vision of empowerment. And of course, Microsoft's vision of empowering every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. That is now about bringing these two remits together, and how do we scale, for the good of humanity. And that is true partnership, which is going beyond the technology and really applying that with our strengths for the betterment and good of people around the world. And so we're thrilled that Providence can come together not only as a customer, and I think BJ mentioned we've been a customer, Providence has been a customer for some time, but we are going to start to continue to change the way we engage with these strategic customers, because it is about partnership. And when we can come together from a partnership perspective, that can help us with innovation. It helps us with agility. BJ mentioned our opportunity to be very innovative and proactive in some ways to the best of our ability when things market changes in the sense of COVID, or potentially even the next thing that comes around there. And so when we come together to partnership, it can help us really do something bigger and better together, and it can help us be adaptive and resilient and innovative in the way that we go address those things. So we're excited about the partnership, and I think it's a great model of how we need to think about engaging with our customers overall.
Thanks, Gretchen.
Yeah,
Appreciate
it's exciting.
Super exciting, and really going back to the whole notion in the concept that we've been talking a lot about lately, because we see it daily, and it's emblematic in Microsoft and Providence, is the concept of dynamic resiliency. And so it's defined as having the ability, the intentional ability and foresight to develop partnerships when times are good, in quotes, and when nothing urgent is taking place, so that you can understand the critical capacity of your partner if you hit a roadblock or a bumpy time. This question would be for both of you.
Sure.
How do you feel that this concept has helped both of your organizations to lean on each other? And you've alluded to this a bit during this discussion, but if we could go a little bit further on how your organizations have leaned on each other, especially during this global pandemic.
So Gretchen, if you don't mind, I'll go first. So yeah, I just want to reiterate the proactive nature of the partnership, right? You can't wait till a crisis and, oh my gosh, who am I going to partner with? Their dance card could already be full, and by the time you get it done, that you're too far into the crisis. So us coming together, July of 2019, proactively building that partnership agreement, building the relationship, building that network. And so when COVID hit, not only did that partnership and investment pay off, but I actually saw the partnership strengthen. And so in times of crisis, I saw Providence step up. Couldn't be more proud of our health system and the way we stepped up to serve our community, but also couldn't be more proud of how Microsoft stepped up in that relationship. There wasn't a day that I didn't get a call from Microsoft on how can we help. what philanthropic resources can we give you? What insight can we give you? What barriers can we remove? Where can we innovate? I didn't talk about the chatbot, but one of the things we innovated on early is, how do you give a chatbot that our patients can talk to on the web to know if they should be concerned about their symptoms or not, if they should come in the emergency room or stay home and everything's okay. So an example of where not only did that partnership, see us through the crisis, but it actually became stronger, became more innovative, and I just saw the two companies work together like I'd never seen. And so yeah, the proactive nature, George, certainly pays off. But the depth and the quality of the relationship is even more important. So at times of crisis, you want to see the best of people, not the worst of people. And what I saw was Microsoft and Providence coming together and seeing the best of two great organizations. So yeah, I couldn't be more pleased.
BJ, that's an incredible for our global audience, looking behind that curtain of what's happening during this really unprecedented time. And let's go back for a moment before we ask Gretchen to answer that question. Think about it. January, you mentioned July of 2019.
Yep.
We're looking at January of 2020.
Life was wonderful.
Yeah, we were looking at this roadmap.
The background would be different.
The background would be different, and we would all be doing different things. But the bottom line is, we had that runway to 2020, and there's elements that you just alluded to that, despite this calamity, which is this pandemic, there's some positive things that have been accelerated. So Gretchen, tell us a little bit about your vantage point on this partnership.
Yeah, I was going to say, BJ, I think you summed it up beautifully. I don't know how much more I can add to the point that you just mentioned. I think on your proactive statement in particular, I think we went in with the mindset really of dynamic resiliency as we built the partnership. And I think that was a point you were making on that proactiveness. When we go in with that joint mindset together, it prepares us, as you had said, sort of for the best and the hardest of times, and gets us into a place where we are positive in our approach and outcomes despite the very hardest challenges that we face. And certainly nothing has rung more true than the global pandemic that we're in right now. And so I think when you have that mindset and you build the partnership in a way that allows for the dynamic resiliency, you now then capitalize on the superpowers of each of the groups. In this case, our two partnership, in even broader, certainly in coalition, as we think about things like telemedicine and office visits was just mentioned. But we bring those superpowers together, and then we can respond, work together to ultimately really address the urgent needs that we see from our mutual customers. And so I think that's all I need to say, because I think BJ landed that perfectly. But again, when you have the mindset, you ultimately can make really heroic things happen in a way with a positive outcome, which we're all certainly working towards.
And George, I just want to add something, play off something that Gretchen said, because we've talked a lot about the great partnership between Microsoft and Providence, and that was great. But expanding on that chatbot example, what I was super proud about is, in the first week or two of the pandemic, Microsoft and Providence worked together on the chatbot and kind of perfected a framework. But what was fantastic is, with the partnership of Providence, Microsoft then took that to other health systems. It wasn't a matter of, hey, this is the Microsoft Providence partnership and let's only benefit the two organizations. That chatbot then ended up being used at almost every major health system in the United States, actually was rolled out globally, and even the CDC used that same technology. So it wasn't just a matter of how do Microsoft and Providence come together to benefit just each other. Great example of how that innovation immediately benefited all of our communities in the US, other health systems. And so really proud that we could do that and then have a greater benefit for the whole. So I just think a really small example of that
global impact
paying off. Yeah, exactly.
Great.
And you bring up a really good point. I mean, I think the point here is this is an example of a partnership between Microsoft and Providence, but there are so many. I mean, it's built into the DNA of both organizations, and we've seen it, front and center for Microsoft and Providence, which is absolutely amazing, and a testament again to the definition. When you search, wherever you search, websters.com or wiki or whatever, and you put in Microsoft or you put in Providence or you put in dynamic resiliency,
yep,
it's all interlinked. You all are the definition of that, both individually, personally as well. You're committed to these partnerships, but also with the companies that you represent, being Microsoft and Providence. And so I would like to take a moment to provide you with a heartfelt note of thanks from myself personally, professionally, because I've seen, and now I've heard even more today, which makes me prouder than ever to be associated in some small way with both of you as you're changing the world. And as we close out 17 days, hundreds of interviews and individuals, what a culmination at the NASDAQ to be talking about Providence and Microsoft and your commitment to partnerships and coming together and utilizing our collective platforms and experience as leaders to unite for the simple purpose of solving some of the most vexing issues on the entire planet. And I'll leave it with this. Let's continue to change the world together. Thank you. It's been an honor.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, George, as always. Thanks, BJ. It's great to see you again.
Yep, great to see you. Thanks.
Gretchen O'Hara, Microsoft, BJ Moore, Providence, leadership defined. Thank you.
Thank you.